excuse me, the GAO's report July 2015 indicated EPA should improve its monitoring reporting data. So before your report came out, they changed it to the EAGLE system. How is that improving, and will that satisfy?
So that's a good question. And right, as we were doing our work, we had recommendations for EPA to either decide to do away with the old system or improve its old system. The new system that they have, which you refer to as EAGLE, when we were doing our work, EPA was still finalizing it, so we haven't looked at it to see how it's working. We do think that it's...
When will you know, though?
Well, so we're going to be tracking the development of it. So as EPA, I believe that EPA is supposed to allow data entry at the beginning of fiscal year 2016.
So not until next year.
So once that happens, we were also interested to make sure, I know one thing that EPA has done already is restricted who inputs information into that system, so that now you get more consistent information. In the old system, everybody, I believe, who was a grantee or was an entity receiving funds could input information. EPA has also improved the guidance that they've provided.
Is it project specific?
Yes, so it would be project specific, and they're restricting who can do it. It's just federal agencies, and they have better guidance. So we'd like to see how that goes, and can report back on it.
How long will it take you after you review that data next year?
Well, we'd have to wait at least until there's some data entry. So once the federal agencies enter the information, I would give it a year for us to see how well it's working.
How often will you track that data?
Well, we at this point, because we didn't make a recommendation, because since EPA was taking action, we would probably have to look at the effort again, so we'd get a request from you that says, go back in, see how the system is working, and be more than happy to do that. Mm-hmm. So, the one thing that I just wanted to add, which hasn't been brought up, and I think it's important to mention, it's the issue of nutrient runoff. And that is, in the work that we did, as we talked to stakeholders, they told us about an issue that really isn't addressed by the GLRI, and that is the issue of inadequate stormwater and wastewater infrastructure that leads to runoff.
Water treatment plants.
So that is a big area. We refer to it sometimes as urban runoff. I think it's maybe been referred to it. But that's an area that stakeholders said is key. It contributes to nutrient runoff, and it's not addressed really by the GLRI. Obviously, EPA has the state revolving funds, and each state then provides money.
What would provide the ability to be able to not control, but actually modify how it's being treated and who's treating it?
So in a lot of cases, what happens with this infrastructure, it's just one infrastructure. So in heavy rains, the overflow just goes into streams, lakes, rivers, instead of the treatment plant. So it's an issue that a lot of places, and you'll probably hear from the second panel, it's an issue that a lot of cities across the country and towns face.
So are you looking at the improvement or upgrading of the water treatment plants to be able to accommodate that?
That is one option, yes. So others are
that is that being considered?
So under the GLRI, one of the things that we are focusing on is controlling stormwater runoff through something called green infrastructure. We don't spend, and we are prohibited from spending GLRI money on hard infrastructure like wastewater treatment plants.
Okay.
We can't do that. But we are very well aware that stormwater runoff can cause health hazards. You can't swim in a beach because of E. coli, whatever the problem may be. So we have devoted a considerable amount of funds, and we're continuing to focus on this concept of green infrastructure, which can be as simple as where you've got runoff running down into a beach area, you construct a little we would call it a swale, a little ditch. You put plants in it that absorb the runoff, they filter the runoff, so before it actually gets into the lake, it's essentially been filtered, and you've captured a lot of the E. coli. That kind of project we can do, and we've had 2 rounds now of what we've called green infrastructure funding, and we plan to continue.
But wouldn't it make sense to be able to assist the treatment plants, be able to upgrade or expand, to be able to handle in times when you have exceeding amounts of rain?
Well, and again, part of the green infrastructure, the intent is to capture some of the water before it gets into the concrete stormwater system. By reducing that amount of stormwater getting into the system, it can reduce the likelihood of overflows. But again, the way GLRI is structured, we can't offer money to fix or update treatment plants themselves.
Okay, well, it might be something you might want to consider in the future. Now, you mentioned their issue, I think it was Mr. Kramer on quagga mussel infestation, because somebody did. Was it you, Mr. Koroliski? On quagga mussel, because that's very costly to reduce the or clean the intake valves and all the systems that are affected. What have you found is how would I say, working to be able to reduce the impact it has on those intakes?
So, Ranking Member, probably the latest news is that within the past year, there has been and I'm not recalling the term, I'll call it a quaggicide or a zebricide. There's been essentially a pesticide that has been found to be effective against drycinid mussels, which are the quagga and zebra mussels.
And zebra. Mm-hmm.
Now, and the information thus far shows that it can have an impact on them without impacting other, for example, native mussels.
Would you send to this committee, subcommittee, information on that? Because I'm sure some of our entities would be glad to know what it is that is successful in that area.
We would be happy to do so. The one thing I would point out is that thus far, it's only been tried on a pilot level. It's only been tried at a pilot level.
Okay. Now, California has many problems with water. As you well know, we're facing drought. But is there any recommendations you have for California?
Ranking Member Napolitano, the only thing I can say is I think with each passing month and year, whether we live in California or we live in the Great Lakes Basin, we all realize that water is precious.
Correct.
And it's being recognized as being more precious, and we have to protect it. And if we're going to be, whether it's on one extreme, a drought where we have to do a better job of conserving water, or on the other extreme, you're seeing more intensive storms dumping a large amount of water in a short period of time, we have to plan for that.
But what I find more interesting is the partnerships that were forged to be able to make this happen. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
I want to thank the panel for coming in today and